I want to thank our previous guest from the Canadian Soccer News, Dwayne Rollins, and we talked about the Canada-Denmark game, and they're getting ready to take on the US of A in Houston in that beautiful stadium with a lot of young, new, fresh faces on Team Canada, but a face that many people will never forget that represented Canada proudly, and a guy that went on to success in Europe is my next guest, Paul Stalteri. Welcome to Red Card, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. How you doing?
Very good. More importantly, the first and important question, Paul, how are you doing health-wise?
I'm good now, 100% fit. No problems, no symptoms anymore from the operations. So I'm well pleased with that. And yeah, like I said, it was a tough rehab, a long rehab, but you know, I'm back to 100% fitness and feeling really good, actually.
So all the fans want to know out there, Paul, are you still looking to hook on with a club, or have you decided to maybe look at other ventures in your life?
No, I mean, you're always when you hit a certain age in your career, you're always looking at other ventures, other ideas, other situations that you may do or may not do after your career, especially with the injury that I had at the time of my career. But at the same time, I haven't closed any chapters in terms of playing again, so I'm waiting to see. You know, things have a couple things that have come haven't been what I've really wanted to do in terms of playing again. So I'm waiting to see if something comes along, and we'll make that decision in the next little bit. Anyways,
is there a desire in Paul Stalteri's heart to one day possibly coach a team?
No, I mean, I definitely have aspirations to stay in football. I mean, I know I have qualities in terms of reading a game and understanding players and understanding the game itself. With all the experience I gained overseas, playing with some of the top players in the world, learning from them every day, learning from some of the top coaches has given me, you know, that experience and that a lot of players might not be able to get over in North America or other places in the world. But I've gotten a situation where I feel, you know, I have something to offer football, whether that's on the coaching side, whether that's in another aspect. But you know, it's you know, a question I'll answer in the next little bit, but coaching for sure is definitely something I haven't. One of the things I haven't checked that I wouldn't be able to do or wouldn't do, but it's definitely a possibility.
Well, then, if this is the case, this really ticks me off. You're a local guy. There was a position available here with TFC. You're in the same age bracket as the newest guy that they hired, Ryan Nelson. You've played in a high league in Europe, a Bundesliga. You know the North American game. You grew up on it. You've played in CONCACAF. I don't understand for the life of me why TFC, Kevin Payne, wouldn't pick up the phone and say, hey, Paul, would you be interested? Did you ever get a phone call from TFC, Paul?
No, to be quite honest, I haven't spoken to them about that at all, about the coaching situation. Obviously, myself and like everyone else wasn't aware that they were looking for a manager or a coach at the time. We all assumed that they were continuing with Paul Mariner, and I guess that wasn't the case in the backs of their minds or back of Kevin Payne's mind. He wanted to pursue other options, and but obviously it wasn't a situation where he had the candidacy open to applications or to various interviews. I think I think everyone can assume that he knew who he wanted to get, and that's the way he's gone. You know, so to be fair, I haven't really even put that into my mind because the job was never vacant. If you can understand what I mean, it was always from one day to the next. It was the job. Someone was fired and someone was hired. So.
Well, that to me is a shame because at least out of courtesy, they could have picked up the phone to give you a call, and also a former teammate of yours a call, in Paul Pescasolido, who has experience, but I know that there was no calls made. So to me, this is a shame. But hey, we'll turn that page, Paul, and we'll move forward, and I'm sure one day you will be a very good head coach in wherever you'll be coaching. But Paul, let's talk about obviously Saturday. You and I yesterday were at a wonderful function where over close to 400 people were there. And a lot of people were talking about that Canada-Denmark game. A lot of people that are passionate and hungry to see Canada succeed. You left blood, sweat, and tears for Canada out there, Paul, when you played. Where do you see that this program needs to go to get better and to get us back to the World Cup, Paul?
Well, I mean, I've had this conversation a number of times over the past month. It isn't a quick fix. Like I've said to people, it's not a situation where in 4 years if we do things this way or that way, we'll get it right and we'll qualify. It's not that simple. I think in 4 years, if we continue to do the things we did before, maybe you get a lucky bounce here or there, and you get yourself into the hex, and you have a chance to qualify. I mean, that was the case this year. If you go back to the previous games before the Honduras went away, a header from Simeon Jackson goes half a meter wide. If that goes half a meter on net, it's in the back of the net, and you've qualified for the next round. And everyone's speaking of a different tone completely about Canadian football. So sometimes it's a break here or there. So we have to be also look back at the situation and reevaluate things and see what good things did we do in qualifying, what bad things did we do. Obviously, it's difficult to put out one result, especially from the scoreline and from the importance that game had. But it is also important that we take some good out of the qualifying, and we had a good record. The team played well. But let's face it, it's not a situation where in 4 years, if we do something the right way, we'll qualify with certainty. I think what we need to do in this country is change the mentality for the next. And it's difficult because people want results tomorrow, but that's not going to be the fact. I mean, if you're going to want to change Canadian football, the only way to change it is have the mentality in 10 or 12 years from now. And I know it's difficult to say, but in 10 or 12 years from now, working with the generations that are 8 and 10 years old at the time and 12 years old is the way forward. Developing players at that age bracket should be the target and should be the aim, because there's very difficult to develop a 21-year-old or a 22-year-old in 4 years to qualify for the World Cup. I think we have to refocus our thoughts, and that's not as easy. Like I said, you can't just say we're going to qualify if we do things differently. We have to do things differently from the ground up, and that starts with, I think, and a lot of other people I think have the same opinion, is the age bracket between 8 and 12 years old, which is very important. And I think we have to be prepared and have the discipline and the patience to see that through and concentrate in that age bracket and go in the next 10 or 12 years and change the program from that point on. There's no point to, like I said, focusing too much on how do we get it right in the next 4 years. Well, you almost had it right this time around, so whether you get it right next time around, it could be the case with a break here or there. But in the end, if we want the program to get better, we want the players to get better, we have to look at the long term.
Paul, speaking to Roberto Bettega yesterday, former Toronto Blizzard, Juventus, and Italy star, he mentioned one key word to me, and you talked a little bit about it there, about the young key ages, but he mentioned one word: we need teachers. Talk a little bit about how vital, important it is to have real soccer teachers out there teaching the game. Not the regular guy that, finishes work, that's never played the game himself and watches a few videos and teaches our kids at the most precious ages how to kick a ball, how to chest a ball and score.
Well, he's spot on, and he delivered a very well-spoken speech yesterday about the love of the game, the love of football, it being the greatest sport in the world, and he's completely right, in my opinion. And one key factor that he did speak about as well was the importance of the coach and of the teacher, and they take that very serious in Europe. They take that very serious in a lot of countries, other than maybe perhaps Canada has in the past. There is no insult in a coach that only works with 8 and 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds. In fact, these are the coaches in some of the countries have the most praise and the most. They're the unsung heroes of some of these countries. They just don't get the recognition that the professional coach gets. Here, for example, everyone wants to coach the 16-year-olds and the 18-year-olds, or the second team of a professional organization, or even the first team, because of for obvious reasons. But the most important coaches, without a doubt, and he's spot on, is the ones at a young age and the developing ages. And that, until we get that changed, until we get that mentality and that mindset right, that these people, these coaches, they're not just, they might be out of the limelight, but these are the ones who are molding the players for the future, and that's some of the key ages, without a doubt.
Paul, let's talk about that mindset. You've played in many CONCACAF nations and countries where a lot of the players always say that it's difficult to play in Honduras, in Panama, in Mexico, you name it. You've done that, Paul. To me, I think it's so vital and important that we start working on the psyche of the Canadian player, the mentality. Then when we do go down there, we have to go through a brick wall and take no prisoners. How vital and important is that we start instilling in the young Canadian boys' minds that, hey, you can beat the Mexicans, you can beat the Honduras in their stadium, or at least get a tie at best if you go in with the right frame of mind.
Yeah, well, it is very easily, much easier and very easily said than done. Of course, that's one fact. I mean, it's a situation where there's many factors that come into play. The pitch is always different. Very rarely people in Canada realize that the grass over there is it's a different texture. The pitch is a bit always a little bit softer in terms of the way they have it set up. You feel heavier on the pitches. Your legs feel a little bit heavier. This is one factor that nobody really realizes. But in Central America, it's a fact that the type of grass they use, the type of pitches you're playing on, is much different than what a lot of the players are used to, especially the ones in MLS who play on very hard pitches throughout the season. Even the European pitches are normally in tip-top shape, the players from Europe, so it's a much different situation just in terms of the players on the pitch. Now, you obviously have all these different factors in terms of what the stadium is like, the hostility in the stadium, the crowd. And then it's you're out there by yourself. You're away from home. It's a different situation. So mentally, that becomes the mental aspect of it, other than the physical aspect. You playing in these countries where a lot of times these Central American players don't travel well. So when you're playing them at home, they're not in the same mind frame as they are when they're at home. And at home, they seem to be a lot tougher. A lot more up for the game, if you understand what I mean. And these factors all come into play as why the reason is that it's very difficult to take points away from home in such difficult conditions. You have the weather factor, of course, is another aspect. I mean, it's no excuse, of course, but the boys played in 3 or 4 degrees on a Friday night, and were asked to play 3-4 days later in the middle of the afternoon at the hottest peak of the temperature at 30-35 degrees. So you're asking a lot in terms of the way the body adapts to that situation, which is another massive aspect of being able to take points in those situations.
Paul, in the last qualifying round, I think you and I can agree to this. You are a proud Canadian, as am I, but we're both of Italian descent. And I've taken a ton of jokes. I've taken a ton of ridicule and bullets in the last 25 years for supporting Canadian soccer, much more than the Azzurri and Italian soccer, because I'm born here and I love my country way, way more than I would support the Azzurri. I think, Paul, you would agree that the last time, for the first time, the qualifying games at BMO was a much more pro-Canadian crowd than we've ever seen before, and I think this is fantastic, Paul.
Without a doubt. I mean, like I said, we were in a situation where the players, the team delivered for. Let's not forget this first round of qualifying. Mind you, the games were of the quality was of a lot less. But for 11 games of qualifying, the team was in tip-top shape. They didn't miss a beat. They played at a level much better than any of the other opponents. They let in the least amount of goals out of anybody, and that's in our group. We were in honestly, you couldn't have asked for a better situation. And the fans were right behind the team in every game that they played.
Paul, let's talk about how vital and important it is for this country to get a real professional league coast to coast to help out young Canadian players that, are not given the opportunity in MLS. Let's be honest, only the creme de la creme can play in the MLS that are Canadians, and the rest, won't be able to play. And again, Canadians are considered foreigners in MLS, and I think this is wrong. Talk about how key it is to get our own Canadian professional league.
Well, I mean, there's 2 things there. One, of course, I agree totally that the Canadians Canadians considered as a foreigner in the league is a rule that for me I can never understand. I can never accept it. For me, it's impossible for that to exist, considering all things being equal in the league. So that's one factor. The second factor is, if that's the way the league is going to continue to grow and to continue with these rules, then of course, if Canadians need a place to play, If they're not getting that in the MLS, if they're not getting that in the MLS teams in Canada, which is, like you said, very limited at the moment as well, then by all means, if it was feasible, if it was logistically possible, if the funding was there, if all these boxes were ticked at the right moment, and a proper league could be set up, then by all means, would I support something like that? Of course I would.
Paul, a couple more questions and then we'll let you go. We really appreciate your time, but I want to get your opinion on this. We saw in the last Olympic qualifying that Canada beat the US of A on their soil, on their turf, and our youngsters really competed with their youngsters. And to me, I've always said this, Paul, and I want to get your thoughts. I think up until the ages of, I would say, 18, 19, we can compete with the US boys. After that, something happens. What happens, Paul?
Well, one of the factors is you just hit it is the fact that they have 15 other MLS teams that they can go to, if you include the Canadian ones, or is it 19 now? I think it is. So they have 19 teams to choose from. We have 3 to go to. This is one factor. If you go to the other 16 in the MLS, you're considered a foreigner. So this is one problem. Second problem is now at 2021. The players have to be able to play somewhere, and if it's not MLS, then they have to go to Europe and grind careers out, and sometimes it doesn't work out. It's not as easy as it's said to be, or what you see from a lot of the Canadians who play in these top leagues, like some play in the Premiership, the Bundesliga, the Eredivisie in Holland. These are situations where it's very, very difficult to get into, and so if they can't get in the MLS, if there's no league to play in Canada, then they're forced to go that route. And very, very difficult, of course, to get onto one of the top European clubs or teams or leagues for that matter.
Paul, we'll close it out with this. I never had the opportunity to ask you this in all the interviews I've done with you, but I'm sure there's been so many influential and key people in your life to help you throughout your pro career and now hopefully in your coaching career one day. Who were they? Were there some young guys at the early ages? Is it a pro coach? How about your dad, your mom? Who has been so influential in your life?
Well, loads of people. Family, of course. Your parents are your first teachers in life, without a doubt. And then in terms of football, it's from one to the other. I had a great situation in Canada. I had a club coach in Orazio Di Ciancis who helped me along the way. Then I moved on to the States. I came back here, played under Peter Panizzotto in the Lynx. Then I went to Europe, where I had pretty much where I really learned my trade under Thomas Schaaf in Werder Bremen. And I think that was the very, there's one thing in learning how to play football, and then there's the next is learning how to be a professional and learning the trade on a day-to-day basis, and that you can only learn over there in some of these top teams, and some playing with some of the top professionals that I played with, learning the experience, asking them questions, and like I said, there's nothing there's nothing to replace playing alongside some of the best, most experienced world-class players that I had, that I was fortunate and lucky enough to play by and learn from on an everyday basis with some of the top coaches as well.
Well, let me tell you this: you're a true professional, a true Canadian, and a guy that is a class act on the field, but more importantly, off the field. You're always gracious with your time. Paul, we wish you nothing but success. Whether you still got them laced up or you're going to be coaching somewhere, we'll keep our eyes on you. But again, thanks so much for representing the country that you love so much. And again, good luck to you, Paul.
Cheers. Thanks very much.